moving to a new house is a pain in the neck. It always is, and even more so if you have a lot of books, comic books, and games like I do. Then you have to spend a lot of time packing, then unpacking, building bookshelves, organizing things. It is a nightmare, and it is an ordeal that I'm going through right now. We just moved to a new house, and it doesn't really look much like a house right now. It looks more like a warehouse that has been hit by a tsunami. I'm doing a lot of work to make it look like a place where human beings can live. One of the many negative effects of this is that I haven't been able to attend gaming events recently. This is very hard for me. I really miss that. At least I'm still playing some solitaire games late at night, so I don't go in withdrawal. So when it's late at night, I'm done with my official work. I cannot build stuff because it'd be too noisy. Then I play solitaire games if I'm not too exhausted. One of the games that I've played in this fashion is Nightfighter by GMT Games. This is a game about World War II, about aerial combat in the night skies of World War II. A main player, the game is for a player and a half, for a main player and for a game master referee. The player will control the fighters that are trying to stop the bombers before they reach their targets, and then you have the game master that is going to control the bombers, but also to keep track of a lot of hidden information, because the player does not know the location of the bombers. And also a game that, as I said, has been called for a game for 1.5 players because the game referee does not have many choices. The behavior of the bombers is pretty rigid, is pretty predetermined. Yes, there are ways in which the game master can trick the player, can bluff, but not so many. Now, in any case, as I said, this is a game that is not apparently possible to play as a solitaire game. Well, guess what? Word game guru Roger Sabin managed to come up with a variant with a series of rules that allow a single player to play the game as a solitaire. So that really made me curious about the game. I just wanted to see from the point of view of designing, how do you do that? How you turn a game like this in a solitaire game. And well, he managed to do so in a very smart way, pretty much by exploiting the rigidity of the role of the game master and turning that into an AI. But then of course there are other ways in which the game has been tweaked, because the hidden information part is a pretty huge one. In any case, today I'm going to tell you about the general ideas behind the game, the game in its official version, the 1.5 player version. Then I'm going to tell you about the general concepts that the solitaire variant is based on, and finally I'm going to share my impressions with you, my impressions about playing the game as a solitaire. The game is played on two nearly identical paper maps, a larger paper map that belongs to the player and a smaller map that is used by the game's referee. The central area of the two maps is exactly the same. The difference is that the player's map also has some areas here to keep track of different factors that affect the game. Between the two maps, there is a screen that is placed, well, to separate the two maps. Also, this screen works as a phenomenal player aid. There's really a lot of information conveyed on this screen, very useful, and the game's referee is allowed to look over the screen to look at the player's map, and actually you should do that, whereas the player is not allowed to look over the screen to what is happening on the referee's map. This is important because only the referee will have a clear, complete picture of what is going on the map. The player will have his own fighter on the board, moving around and searching for for enemy airplanes that will enter from that edge of the map and will move in this direction, trying to exit the map from this edge here. This is what the game's referee is trying to do, what the game master is trying to do. The player is hunting those airplanes, trying to figure out their position and trying to destroy them before they exit the map, which is not an easy feat. So basically, it will be only the referee that will have counters to indicate the position of all involved airplanes in the fight, and the player will have only his own, and then there will be markers that will be placed on the map to indicate the position of things that have been identified. There will be radar markers to indicate the result of radar searches and things like that. A turn is divided in several phases. First, the game's referee moves his bombers on this map here. Then new bombers may enter the board based on the scenario instructions. Then the player moves his fighter or fighters. Of course, different models of airplane will move in different ways, at different speeds. Then there are a series of phases that mainly are ways in which the player will search to identify the position of the enemy on the map. And each phase has slightly different procedures, so I'm not going to go in detail here, otherwise the game will sound more complicated than the game is. Suffice to say that there is a phase where the player may use radar searches, airborne radar searches. There may be searchlights that will help the player. The player may try to tally an airplane of the opponent, that is, to try to get a good knowledge of where the opponent's airplane is. And now, if there is a tally, the fighter is following the opponent and is getting ready to attack the opponent. The player can also try to just look out of the airplane, just to use, normal sight, naked eye, to see if he manages to spot the opponent. Some of these things may be modified by situations such as moon phase, cloud, visibility. And then there is a combat phase, during which if the fighter of the player is in the same hex as an opponent, as the referee's airplane, as one of the airplanes belonging to the referee, same hex, same orientation, and the fighter has a tally on that airplane, then the player can attack. The player rolls a die, adds the firepower, looks at the table, and then basically pretty much that is what resolves combat. This is the basic combat, very simple. There is an advanced version in which the bomber of the opponent may react, different things may happen, bad stuff may happen to the player basically when attacking an opponent's bomber. This is pretty much how the game works. You repeat the procedure until either the player wins by meeting the victory conditions of the scenario, or the player fails because too many enemy bombers manage to leave the map from this edge of the map. And in different scenarios, you will have different conditions, of course, different combinations of models of airplanes involved in the fight, and also you may not have all of these sequences, not all of the means of search that are generally available to the player may be available in all scenarios. In some scenarios, the player will have a frustratingly small amount of resources to find out the position of the opponents. These are the Solitaire rules printed from the GMT website. A major change is that in the Solitaire version you only use the player's map. You do not need the referee's map. All the information goes on the player's map. The main concept that the solo version is based on is uncertainty. In the solo version, you have several levels of uncertainty, from no uncertainty, when you know the exact position of the opponent, to low uncertainty. At low uncertainty level, you have a counter representing the approximate position of the opponent on the map, but basically the actual airplane may not be in this hex here. It has equal chances of being in any one of the 6 hexes represented by this diagram. So you see the counter on the map, but you have to keep in mind that the actual enemy may be in any of these. The general idea is that whenever you need to test for the precise location of the opponent, you roll a die, and if you roll a number that falls in the area of access that you are able to search, when performing that search, then you have found the enemy. For example, suppose that I have a radar that allows me to search in these two axes here. Then I roll a die. If I roll 1 or 2, then I move the counter to the X indicated by the number that I rolled. I place a track marker on it to indicate that that is the exact position of the opponent. And, well, I found the opponent, now I can attack it. If I rolled 3, 4, 5, or 6, meaning a result indicating X that I was not searching, then I just know that for that turn, the opponent is not in these two axes here, and I'm not able to reduce the level of uncertainty. The same principle applies to moderate uncertainty, just in this case the area is much larger, the area of uncertainty, you have this counter here, but at the moderate uncertainty the counter may be in any one of these axes here. Now when you're scanning the area, you roll 2 dice, a blue die and a purple die, they come with the game, and if again the number that you rolled falls in the area that you're actually searching, then you found the opponent, you switch the counter to the X indicated by the dice, and you just found the opponent. Suppose that I have a radar that allows me to scan this column here, this column of 4 hexes, then if I roll a 2 on the blue die and then any number on the purple die, or a 3 on the blue die and a 1 or 2 on the purple die, I have found the opponent. Otherwise, same as before, I can exclude these X's for this turn, but I have to start searching again next turn. Moderate uncertainty is quote-unquote the natural state of the opponent's aircraft, but when the enemies are entering the map, actually they are usually at high uncertainty, depending on the setup, on the situation. They may be represented, the opponents may be represented by high uncertainty areas of 3 or 6 moderate uncertainty areas. Meaning, high uncertainty means that you have several counters on the map, 3 or 6 counters, each of which surrounded by a moderate uncertainty area. And the actual enemy may be in any one of those 3 or 6 areas and within the real area, anywhere in that area. So what you're doing in this case, when you're scanning a high uncertainty area successfully, is that you can learn whether or not the opponent is actually in that area. Meaning, suppose I've successfully scanned a high uncertainty enemy represented by 6 moderate uncertainty areas, then I roll a die. If I roll a 1, then I've scanned the one position, the one area where the opponent is, I eliminate the other 5 counters, and now I'm left with a single counter that indicates the moderate uncertainty area within which the opponent actually is. Now I have to reduce that to low uncertainty or no uncertainty. If I failed, suppose I have 6 moderate uncertainty areas, all of them represented a single enemy, and I rolled a 5 or a 6 or a 2, then I scanned the wrong area, an area with a ghost opponent, I remove that counter, and I'm left with 5 uncertainty areas to scan. So this system basically replaces hidden information with random information. The actual enemy of the opponent has an equal chance of being in a radius of access that can be very small with low uncertainty, moderate, or very high. And you simply have to use your radar and other means to reduce the uncertainty gradually until you find the actual position of the opponent, which may be anywhere in here, and then you can finally attack the opponent. What I like most about the game is the thematic feel. The game really gave me a better appreciation of the unique situations and conditions of night fighting in World War II. The game has a pretty good number of scenarios that is highly increased by a very good number of variants. experience. Each scenario can be played in many different ways. That will cover different theaters of war, different periods of the war, different technological situations and conditions. Some missions are virtually impossible because you do not have enough technical support. In other missions, you will be able to rely on a combination of means such as searchlights and different types of radar, and of course that will make things different. So you will really see how things work under different circumstances. And again, large number of historical situations that you can experience. As a thematic experience, I really enjoyed that. As for the feel of playing the game, well, let's say this. In the official version, there are still ways in which the Game Master can trick the player by delaying the bombers, by rolling dice when that is not necessary, fake die rolls just to freak out the player, making the player believe that something is going on. And of course that will lead to, let's call them, tough choices for the player. The player will try to see through the bluff of the referee, and there may be cases in which the player acts counterintuitively by making the choice that seems the least reasonable. Then actually turns out that the player has seen through the bluff of the game master, and that choice that seemed to be not that good is the right one and the one that pays off. This is not going to happen with the Solitaire version here, because the Solitaire version acts in a completely statistical way. The bombers of the opponent will be in a radius of access, but within that radius, no matter how large it is, the bomber always has the same chances of being in one of the axes within that radius. There isn't an X that may be more likely, another one less likely, and maybe in reality the one that looks more likely is going to be less likely, and the other way around. Since the opponent doesn't bluff, the opponent acts in a merely statistical way. That means that when you can identify a decision that gives you better odds than the other ones, that is the right decision. There is no reason for you to go for a decision that gives you 10% odds of finding the bomber of the opponent as opposed to another one that gives you 30% or 40%. That will always be the right one. Of course, you can play bad just to see what happens, but what's going to happen? You're going to lose the game. I don't even see the pleasure of knowledge there, of gaining a lot of new knowledge. Of course, unpredictable things happen. Of course, there are times in which you find bombers by chance when you do not expect that. At the times, you just keep following ghosts of bombers through the entire map and you just can't get your hand on the opponent that you're trying to find. But again, this does not go against the general principle that in this game, the best odds are the ones that will lead you to the best decisions. Against a human opponent, that is not always the case. And in a certain way, I had the sense as I was playing the game that I was following the story, precisely because the odds were dictating my next best move. I was just following the story. I just wanted to see what happened. I just wanted to experience the theme. In that sense, even though the mechanics are very different, the game gave me a feel similar to B-29 or the expansion Hell Over Korea. Again, games where the strongest element is not the set of decisions that you can take, but the experience that you gain about the theme, the sense that you are part of a story that is being built through the game. Then in this, I believe Nightfighter also excels, just like B-29 does. Now, if you are considering whether or not to buy the game and you're planning to play it in the official version, then you have also the Solitaire version, which is a free bonus. Woohoo, that's great. If you're considering whether or not you should buy Nightfighter just for the Solitaire option, well, then I gave you pretty much what I think is the general idea with the pluses and minuses. I think in terms of strategy, this is not the most subtle Solitaire game that there is. I think there are games with more refined AIs that will allow you, again, with more nuanced strategies. But in terms of thematic experience, in terms of Chrome and historical feel, this is still a very good, a very enjoyable experience.